After 2 days of waiting, it is finally game day for Game 6. And the real question is, do you believe in these Canes?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday/game day edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I also write for the Calder Times, which covers all things AHL. I am the co-host of the Surgecast, is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a very exciting game day edition of the show where we're going to be doing the sights and the sounds from everything that happened in and around practice on Wednesday, and also going to preview Game 6 of tonight's matchup against the New York Rangers, as it's another do or die for the third straight game. But before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So like I said, we're going to start today's episode going over the sights and sounds from Wednesday's practice at PNC Arena. I know on the other show on the other night, they were supposed to have practice. They were originally going to have practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. That changed things for sure. So they only had practice on Wednesday, and it came out during the day on Wednesday as well that the Carolina Hurricanes will not have a morning practice today, as they'll be getting ready for Game 6 later tonight against the Rangers. But on Tuesday afternoon, they had a practice when, thanks to Walt Ruffer being able to, be there and cover the lines and stuff like that, and giving us, what the practice group looks like and stuff like that, and being able to look at, what we could possibly see for Game 6 later tonight. And a funny little interesting thing happened too. We got a special guest that joined practice with the Carolina Hurricanes, and he's officially back in a regular sweater, and that is one Brett Pesce. It is good to see Brett finally back on the ice with the Hurricanes in a regular sweater. And it's just nice to see that 22 is officially back on the ice. So, and speaking about Brett Pesce, Corey Lavalette asked Rod Brind'Amour about if you could put Pesce in at the juncture of the series where it's another do or die for Game 6 to force a Game 7, even if he was ready to go. And Rod Brind'Amour said, yeah, definitely, you could. Not sure you would, but you definitely could. So as it still stands right now, they're looking at Brett Pesce probably won't be playing in Game 6 tonight against New York Rangers. So it all really depends on, do you get him for Game 7 on Saturday if the Hurricanes do win later tonight? And if, like I said, he could be ready for Saturday's game for Game 7 if they do go on, but there might be a possibility where he might miss the entire second round, and you couldn't get him back for the potential Eastern Conference final. But of course, that's that's not really the main goal right now for the Hurricanes. Their main goal is to win tonight for Game 6, to force a Game 7 on Saturday and go from there. So as it stands right now, Brett Pesce is still not ready to go for the Hurricanes, but it was good to see him back on the ice at least, and just being able to see him with the group and kind of getting practice reps back in, since he's been out since Game 2 of Round 1 against the New York Islanders. So overall, looking at the lines from practice that was put out there, and that from overall looking point, it's basically the same lines that we've seen through the entire series against the New York Rangers. You got Jake Guentzel on the first line with Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov. Then you got Jordan Martinook, Jack Drury, and Martin Necas, and then Max Comtois swapping with Martin Necas. And then you had Teuvo Teravainen, Jordan Staal, and Seth Jarvis as your third line. And then finally, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Evgeny Kuznetsov, and Stefan Noesen, with Brendan Lemieux swapping in with Steph Noesen in the process. And then you look at the defensive pairings, you had Jacob Slavin and Brent Burns, Bray Shea, Tony DeAngelo, Dmitry Orlov, and Jalen Sheffield. And then you finish it off with Dylan Coghlan and Brett Pesce as your fourth pair on defense. which means that is now with Brett Pesce being back with the main group per Walt Ruff, that now Scott Morrow is now working with the Black Aces, where for most of the series up until now, and even during the first round against the Islanders, Scott Morrow was with the main group. But now, like I said, since Brett is officially back with the group, for the most part, he's not cleared to play, but he's at least able to practice with the main roster. Now you see Scott Morrow back with the Black Aces. And in terms of the goaltenders, Frederick Anderson's back in the same crease that he's been in for each start of the series, with Pierre Kachekov on the opposite end of the ice. So by that calculations, of course, we'll go over more of that here in a little bit, when we do our preview for Game 6. But it is looking like we are going to probably see Frederick Anderson back in net tonight for Game 6, as he's been pretty much the starter for the entire playoffs outside of Game 3 back on last Thursday again for the Rangers, where the Hurricanes unfortunately lost in overtime, but looks like we may get Frederick Anderson back in. But just to be able to see Brett Pesce back on the ice is a really good indicator that we are finally getting closer to him being back. Like I said, it's most likely you're not going to see him for Game 6, so there's a possible chance you might get him back for Game 7, and just being able to see what we're kind of looking at, same lines that we've seen all of the playoffs so far. So there's really no surprises there in terms of, okay, what could you be possibly looking at? And as of right now, that's pretty much what you're seeing. It's the same lines once again. Now, instead of Scott Morrow with Dylan Coghlan as the fourth pair, now you got Brett Pesce working together in terms of all that. So they're also looking at the power play units. We're able to take a look at practice day as well, including with Jake Guentzel and Teuvo Teravainen swapping spots on the Hurricanes power play units. So now you got Jake Guentzel on PP1, and now you got Teuvo Teravainen on the second power play units. And for the units as a whole, so PP1 has Sebastian Aho, Jake Guentzel, Seth Jarvis, which was the initial group. The original forward core that were together for the most of the regular season until they get towards the very end of the regular season. But starting out, it was Sebastian Aho, Jake Guentzel, Seth Jarvis before the roster shake up. But it's those three with Andrei Svechnikov and Brady Shea. And Brady Shea was moved up to PP1 going back to Game 4 on Saturday, where the Hurricanes won their first game of the series to stay alive before their Monday night's game as well, where they won their second one in a row. But it looks like you got Brady Shea with PP1 kind of sticking with what worked from Game 4. And then you look at power play unit 2, you got Evgeny Kuznetsov with Martin Necas, Steph Nason, and Teuvo Teravainen with Brent Burns. Obviously, it makes sense. You got Kuzi and Necas back together. They worked really well together for the most part in the regular season. With those two, and of course, you cannot talk about the power play units without Stefan Nason and the fact that you see where he is. 4 power play goal, 4 goals in the playoffs so far, big goal. Most recently with his net front presence, and that was in Game 4. So it's something that we've seen it all regular season too. Yes, he's been on the fourth line for most of the season. He's got some looks on the second line at some point too, but Steph Nason is one of those guys where he's made a slot for himself. Despite being in the bottom 6, he has been able to supplant himself onto the power play units because there's of what he brings in terms of the net front that the Hurricanes really need, and that's the guy that they really need to do that with. And of course, Teuvo Teravainen, that's a no-brainer having him in there, and then Evgeny Kuznetsov and just what he can do with his playmaking and skill ability as well to have a great center like that for the second unit. And then of course you got Brent Burns, who's been brought in, as one of the power play guys, and it's one of the more offensive-minded for the defensemen that the team has. So it just makes sense that you got Brent Burns in there, but now he's on the PP2 unit instead of Shea, and those two swapped. And like I said, then they also swapped Jake Guentzel with Teuvo Teravainen for the power play unit. So that's kind of what you're going to be looking at going into Game 6 as well. It's just that's what your power play units are looking like in terms of also what you saw with, Brett Pesce finally back in the regular group lineup and stuff like that. So that's kind of what your main takeaways were from, just in terms of the lineups of what your starting forward core is, what your defensive pairings look like, and your possible starting goalie, along with your power play units. So there was a lot more from practice that was discussed. I know Jordan Martinook did meet with the media after practice as well, and we'll get to that here in a second on a Thursday/game day edition of Locked on Hurricanes. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked on Hurricanes, your team every day. So I know in segment 1 we talked about a couple of things that what was said from Rod Brind'Amour and all that stuff post practice, and also talked about what we saw in terms of the lineup, the lines themselves, special teams, and all that stuff, mainly the power play units and stuff like that. And of course, after practice, Rod Brind'Amour and Jordan Martinook met with the media, and there was a lot of quotes that were definitely that they discussed about that are some that should be highlighted and definitely needs to be discussed about. So that's what this whole segment 2 is going to be, is going over stuff that Rod Brind'Amour and Jordan Martinook mentioned to the media after practice on Wednesday. So in terms of with Rod Brind'Amour, talking about the fact that the teams have now met each other 5 times in the last 10 days. There's not a lot of surprises left in terms of what you would expect from these teams, and the fact that it's right now when you go back and look at the tape, because these teams go and watch what they've previously done, and there's a lot of tape to go back from, because now instead of playing teams maybe 3 times a year and it's all spread out, now you're talking, all right, here's the same team once again for 5-6 times in the span of 10 days, and learning what to do and what not to do. And Rod Brind'Amour said, you never block out the successful stuff and you never block out the bad stuff. You got to learn from it and make sure you don't repeat it. As boring as it is, you've got to win one game again, and that's all we're focused on. And then even after that, just talking about the effort for the team, the fact that how they built on that too, and the fact that it's a good thing. The fact that he defends the guys in the sense that you're going to expect the same jump. He expects you're going to see the same jump from the Hurricanes in Game 6 like you saw in Game 5 and also in Game 4. And Rod Brind'Amour said, you can't ask for guys to give more than they're giving. You can't ask for the goalie to stomp more pucks. They're going to go and do their best, and that's all that we've always asked our guys. I'm sure we'll get that. And looking back on both of those things, you can never block. You can't block out the good, and you can't block out the bad. Like, you can just look at the good and just that's it. But then it's like, okay, but there's all these things that, hasn't worked out. Power play hasn't, at one point the power play is still not doing good. They're still working on it. The penalty kill kind of started slow, but they fixed it and stuff like that too. And now you're seeing more chances of the Hurricanes putting the pucks on net. So you don't want to overlook what's wrong. And if you don't fix what's wrong, then it's going to stay wrong. But you also don't want to overlook and be like, okay, well, let's not just focus on the negatives, focus what's on positives too. And that's what you see on the positive side, is the fact that the Hurricanes have been playing so well in 5-on-5, and they've made those plays that needed to be done. Like you saw in Game 5, 4 goals in the third period, and you built it on just, you kept grinding, you figured out what was working and stuff like that. So that's something to look back on. And Rod Brind'Amour is completely right with that. It's that you don't want to, it's boring, but you've got to win one game again. That's what you got to be focused on, is going 1-0. As they saw in Game 4 and Game 5. Got to go 1-0 that day. You got to get plus 1% better. I've been saying that for the last few days. That's the thing that the Hurricanes are focusing on, is playing to their game and doing the things that's been working for them for their whole regular season, and what got them success in the first round, and now what you've seen in Games 4 and Game 5 to make this a Game 6 going into tonight's game. So that's just one of those things. And the fact that even Rod said, the effort's been there. The effort's been there through the entire series. It's just, things didn't go their way in the first 3 games. And if you listen to the latest Canes cast from Mike Mascacco and Shane Willis, they said the exact same thing. There's really been no huge difference. It's just, they were finally getting the breaks that they needed. And they even reference, the 1-0 game that the Rangers beat Carolina in when they were in Raleigh, is the fact that it was a game where both goalies played well, and Pyotr Kochetkov, arguably could have played better than what Igor did in that 1-0 game. And the only reason why the Rangers won that game was because it was a puck off a Brady Shea skate. There's nothing you can do about that. So these two teams are evenly matched, and outside of that 6-0 game to start off the new year in New York, and then the only lopsided game of the entire series was Game 5, where the Hurricanes won 4-1, and all 4 goals were in the last period, which was basically an elimination period, as Mike Maniscalco put it. So it's just one of those things where, they have not done anything different. It's just they've always had the effort. It's just now their hard work is paying off to where it's now you're seeing goals are going like they needed to, and defense is playing well. The PK unit's now gone absolutely solid, and that's just something you need to work on. So you don't want to not talk about the good and not talk about the bad. You got to talk about both and bring both to the light. But it's just you got to focus on what's next, and the fact that the effort's been there. It's just now they're finally getting the chances that they actually need. So talking to Jordan Martinook, and the fact that, with the fact that Jordan Martinook and the team knows that their backs are against the wall still, the fact that you had to do it in Game 4 and Game 5, now you do it for Game 6. And they're hoping to continue that, effort, and what's helped make this team be able to keep the series going for another, going into the 3rd straight game, where now they have another chance to win another one to hopefully force a Game 7. And Jordan Martinook said they're trying to close it out, and we're fighting for our lives. It's 2 teams who are trying to win a hockey game. We need to bring what we brought last game and bring even a little more. And that's completely right. And that's what I've been saying. That's been the mantra for the Hurricanes all season. Even Hannah Yates has brought up many times too. It's you got to get that plus 1% better every day. You have to take what you learned today, and you go into tomorrow and keep bringing it. And you got to get a little bit better. You got to get a little bit better. And then it's that 1-0 mentality. You go into every game. It's like, okay, it's another day. It's another 0-0 game. Now let's go and win it to go 1-0 on the day. And that's all the Hurricanes really need to do. And like I said, Rod said it. It's boring, but that's the mindset you're in. And Jordan Martinook even said it too. It's just you gotta take what worked for you in Game 3. You had a really great 3rd period to add on to what your scoring ability's already been in that period. And you score 4 straight. You crashed the net. You made the chances work, and it's one of those things where a lot of the Hurricanes' goals in that game, outside of Martinich's Hail Mary shot from in between the faceoff circles, Jordan Stahl's goal right at the net, Jordan Martinook's goal basically in front of the net on a pass that he was able to get from Jack Drury and all that. They have Evgeny Kuznetsov goal. It was a goal off of a pad save that was a juicy rebound that went right back to him because he crashed the net. 3 of the 4 goals that the Hurricanes scored in Game 5 was all in front of the net in different ways. So it's just that's something that's worked for them, and that's what they need to build on, is taking that aspect of getting those outbodying guys, outspeeding guys towards the net, and just use the net front presence. That even worked in Game 4 for a couple more of those goals as well, and that's something you really need to worry about. And that's what the Hurricanes need to bring in for Game 6 tonight against the Rangers to keep the series going even longer. And now looking at special teams, and more so the PK unit, and the fact that outside of the kind of the slow start they had in the first 3 games, in the first couple of games where they 4 for it wasn't really working. It was like 4 for 9 at that point. But now in games 3 through 5, the PK unit's gone 8 for 8. Like, you had a slow start. You gave up a good majority of your chances on the PK unit, but now you've gone 0 for, you've gone perfect in the last 3 games. And even Jordan Martinook talked about it too. That's something they asked him about, was, talking about the penalty kill. I don't think we're playing poorly in the first 3 games. It was just some special team stuff that needed to be cleaned up, and maybe one play here or there when we weren't 100% dialed in. I think we were comfortable with the way we were playing. It was just that we needed to get a couple of different things, and we needed to have that desperation. Obviously, you need it when you're down 3-0. And, he's totally 100%. Yeah, it's one of those things where they played good hockey. It's just the things weren't going their way. And, special teams still needs to get figured out a little bit more so the power play than anything else. But the PK unit started slow, but has been hot ever since. And then it's like, yeah, you have to play a little bit more desperate hockey. And that's what the Hurricanes have been doing recently. It's the fact that they've had to fix a couple things differently. They got better at it. And that being desperate enough to now you're down 3-0, you have to make those things work. And it's done. They've done that. The Hurricanes have made things work. And that's why you see where we're at now. You go from 3-0 down to you go 3-1. Now you're 3-2, and now you have a chance on Thursday night, tonight in Game 6, to go 3 straight and hopefully extend this thing another game for Saturday night's Game 7. And then, of course, another thing that's really been helping the penalty kill unit team is the fact that they took a lot of penalties in the first couple of games, but now ever since then, in 3 games, they've only given up 8 power plays. And, of course, that's one of the things that they need to look for in Game 6. Is to keep that trend of getting into the box less and less. And, still talking to Martinook about it, another thing he said was, well, we've taken less penalty, which helps. Of course, as Jordan Martinook is, has to make laughing about that because he's right. It does help when you take less penalties. You're not giving them as many chances to see what they're doing. As the series goes on, you can pick up on things that they do, and I think we've done a good job adjusting. We're going to need to keep that disciplined mindset moving forward. And that is 100% from Jordan Martinook. That's something they need to keep focusing on is they need to be able to stay disciplined, not take a lot of dumb penalties, and just being able to work their way in a situation where, as long as you keep yourselves out of the box, you keep limiting the Rangers to not having all those man advantages, and you stick to the 5-on-5, that'll go a long way. And that's where you saw it, because like I said, the first couple of games you had 9 penalties in 2 games combined. And the power play and the penalty kill unit wasn't doing that hot. And now you look at games 3 through 5, you're talking 3 straight games and it's 8 penalties. So you're already played 1 more extra game, but you're also taking 1 less penalty overall. And that's a good thing. And the fact that you look at Tim Gleason and his crew and what they've done for the penalty kill, that's a huge monument, and that's a huge building block for the assistant coach that is Tim Gleason, who takes care of the defense and also takes care of the penalty kill. And more so, that's why you've been calling it the power kill. All regular season, they were, they did start off slow at the start of the season where they were like in the 20 range of the league, but they finished strong and went first for the 2nd straight season. So it's worked out. Yeah, they kind of had a slower start for the start of the second round against the Rangers in games 1 and 2, but can't go wrong when you go 8 for 8 on the penalty kill for the last 3 games. And Jordan Martinook said it perfectly. Keep staying out of the box. Keep limiting their chances, because right now, if you look at how the series has gone, special teams has been the Rangers' bread and butter for the most point. Now they got 2 shorthanded goals. Yes, they did have, few power play goals already to start earlier in the series, but now after that, it's pretty much gone down. Less opportunities on the man advantage. It's something that's really been beneficial for the Hurricanes, is the fact they've been a little bit more disciplined. Yes, there was a couple penalties in Game 5 that didn't help, also in Game 4, but if you limit those unnecessary dumb penalties, you stay out of the box, you keep your guys fresh, you don't have to keep going to the penalty killers all the time. So a lot of the guys are going to stay fresh. You're able to rotate through all 4 lines, and you're able to get guys going to where you see that depth scoring you saw in Game 5, where it's Jordan Staal, Jordan Martinook, and Evgeny Kuznetsov. You got your depth scoring. Now what you want to see in Game 6 is your superstars and also those depth guys do what they need to do to score as well. So yeah, a lot of great quotes from Jordan Martinook and Rod Brind'Amour, just talking about the team overall, looking at the effort, looking at how, just being able to do what they need to do, and then talking, to Jordan Martinook about like what's the mindset going into Game 6. Also, what's been helping with the penalty kill and stuff like that too. So a lot of great things from, post practice on Wednesday from, one of the assistant captains and the head coach, and what they need to do to get prepared for Game 6 tonight against the Rangers to hopefully extend this thing another game and force it to Game 7 on Saturday. So talking about Game 6 tonight, we are going to talk about the preview of what to possibly expect for Game 6 tonight against the Rangers, and hopefully what might happen to hopefully get this thing extended to Saturday. And we'll talk about that here in a second on a Thursday/game day edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. The thing that I really like about the Game Time app is the fact that you can get some really great last-minute deals, all along with flash deals and zone deals as well, and the fact that you get your views from all your seats, but even before the venue even starts, and then plus their lowest price guarantee is another big thing as well. And just talking about those deals in general, when you're talking about last minute deals, you save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy theaters, and so much more. And even talking about their flash shows, you can save even more with the exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And there's even their zone deals, which saves even more money for you. And what you do is if you choose the actual section, but you let Game Time choose the seats for you, and you're talking about the seats in general, with their seat views in the app, you get a panoramic view from your seat before you even buy the tickets. So that way you can see what your sight lines are going to be before you even get to the actual venue itself. And talking about their ticket coverage and a low prices guarantee. With their low price guarantee, it is the lowest prices, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And with their Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONAHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONAHL. It's LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So real quick before we wrap up the show, we're just going to do a quick preview of Game 6 for tonight's game against the New York Rangers, and hopefully with the Hurricanes win, we get to extend this thing to Saturday for Game 7. Going to make it nice and simple for this preview, because it seems like the last few previews I've done for the series, it's, maybe these guys should probably swap, and these guys should probably go in here and there, and who should be in net for the Hurricanes. And pretty much every time I've been wrong. So, I mean, maybe it's a good thing that I'm wrong because of the fact that the Hurricanes have won the last 2 games, but who knows? So, for me, and you saw it at the practice lines on Wednesday from, at PNC Arena, you saw that it's been the same forward lines throughout the entire first round, outside of that one game where you saw Max come in, and Evgeny Kuznetsov got taken out, but then of course we saw them flip back and forth, and it's basically been the same ever since. And I would not be surprised if it's the same thing again. And of course you get your same deep pairings of Slave and Burns, Shea and D'Angelo, and then Orlov and Chatfield. And by all accounts, from what it looks like and from what I've heard from, if you listen to Canes Cast and if you've just been reading, what you've been kind of been seeing from, guys like Corey Lavalette and Walt Ruff and all of them, it's that it's probably going to be Frederick Anderson in the crease once again. With the fact that the team had the last 2 days off, Freddie should be rested and ready to go. And he's had a pretty good series all in all, outside of, Game 4 wasn't the greatest, but they still got a win. I mean, he's been all right. I mean, it's one of those things where, how is he going to be for the rest of the series and stuff like that? But, got a .952 save percentage for Monday night, saved 20 of 21. So he had a really great Game 5 and basically just shut it down for the Hurricanes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go back to him again to hopefully extend this thing another day for Game 7 on Saturday. Like I said, 4 quarters, basically going to be about the same. And we saw from practice what the power play units are going to be like. I would definitely expect those power play units to go back again, where you're going to look at PP1 of Gensel, Aho, Jarvis with Svechnikov and Bray Shea. And of course, with Evgeny Kuznetsov, Marnichis, Steph Nason, Teuvo Teravainen, and Brent Burns as your PPT units. That's kind of what we're looking at in terms of the special teams of more so the power play groups and what your forward core, your D pairings, and your goaltenders basically been pretty much for 5 of the 6 games of the series against the New York Rangers. And like I said, hopefully if everything goes well like they have been for the last couple of days, knock on wood, might be seeing, hopefully we'll get a win tonight, which will see us go into Game 7 on Saturday. But that will wrap up this Thursday/game day edition of Locked On Hurricanes. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on X at OneTrueZach. You can follow the podcast at LO_Hurricanes. If you go to the link tree in my bio, you can find out where to find all my articles, newsletters, and premier content over there at the Hockey Writers. You can check out all my stuff over at the Calder Times if you want more anything on the AHL side of things. You can also where to listen and watch on YouTube for my other podcast, which is the Surgecast, and also for this podcast of Locked On Hurricanes. There is a link to where you can listen to the show as long with watching on YouTube. If you're on the podcast side of things, make sure to leave a 5-star rating because that'll help get this podcast out more and help us grow within the ranks of Apple Podcasts. And if you leave a rating or a review with your 5-star rating, I just might read it on the show. Also on the YouTube side of things, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show, and hit the thumbs up button because that helps gets us, more out there on YouTube as well to make the show grow. And if you do watch this and you are subscribed to that, make sure to share with other Caniacs that because hopefully they become everydayers just like you, because we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. And if we get there, I might do something special for you guys. And right now we are over 860. So slowly but surely we're getting up to 1,000 because I want to do something very awesome for you guys. But like I said, that will wrap up the show. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. As always, I hope everyone has a great rest of their Thursday. Hope everyone enjoys. And hopefully everyone has fun as we watch the Carolina Hurricanes hopefully win tonight against the New York Rangers to extend this series to one more game on Saturday night for Game 7. But until then, as always, let's go Canes.